August 20th, 1966, Niterói, Brazil. A teenage boy is flying a kite on the slope of Vintém Hill just outside the city. Saturday morning, clear sky. The hill overlooks the bay, and on days like this, you can see Rio de Janeiro across the water. He isn't looking for anything. He's flying a kite. Then he sees them. Two men, lying side by side in the tall grass near the summit, perfectly still, dressed in formal suits. Raincoats over the suits, even though the weather is clear. Watches removed from their wrists and placed in a plastic bag beside them. No signs of struggle, no visible wounds, no blood. And over each man's eyes, a pair of handmade lead masks. Thick sheets of cut metal, curved to fit the face, held in place with simple wire. The kind of mask you'd wear to protect against radiation. The boy runs down the hill and calls the police. When investigators arrive and search the bodies, they find one more thing. A handwritten note in one of the men's pockets. The Portuguese is slightly clumsy, as if written quickly or from dictation. Translated, it reads, 16:30 be at the agreed place, 18:30 ingest capsules, after effect protect metals, wait for signal mask. That is the entire note. That is all it says. The men are identified. 2 electronics technicians from a town 200 miles away. They told their families they were going to buy equipment for work. No capsules are found at the scene. No equipment. No sign of whatever they came here to meet. The cause of death is never established. The organs deteriorate before proper toxicology can be completed. The lead masts have no holes, no eye holes, no openings of any kind. Whatever they were waiting for, they were waiting for it blind. I've spent a long time with this case, and the question that I cannot move past, the one that makes this different from almost every other unsolved death I've covered, is this. The note was not a suicide note. It was a schedule. These men expected to come back down the hill. Something stopped them. We still don't know what. Stay with me, because the further into this case you go, the stranger it gets. And by the end, you'll understand why nearly 60 years later, no one has closed it. Manuel Pereira de Cruz was 32 years old. Miguel José Viana was 34. Both were electronics technicians from Campos dos Goitacazes, a mid-sized city in the north of Rio de Janeiro state, nearly 300 kilometers from the capital. They repaired radios and televisions. By every account, they were steady, capable men, not erratic, not reckless. They had families, regular work, reputations in their community. The kind of men you'd trust to fix your television and have it back to you by Thursday. They were also, according to people who knew them well, deeply involved in something that went far beyond television repair. In 1960s Brazil, scientific spiritism had a substantial and entirely mainstream following. It was not a fringe movement. It was practiced openly, written about seriously, and taken as a legitimate intellectual framework by people across every class and education level. The belief, broadly, was that contact with higher intelligences, spirits of the dead, extraterrestrial beings, or something beyond current human taxonomy, was achievable through specific ritual, preparation, and discipline. Cruz and Viana were believers, and their belief filtered through their technical expertise in electronics and electromagnetic systems had led them to a specific conclusion: that the right frequencies, the right preparation, the right protection could open a line of communication with whatever was out there. They were not the first people to attempt this. They were part of a broader network of practitioners in Brazil who shared methods, shared instructions, shared a vocabulary for what they were trying to do. A few months before their deaths, the two men had reportedly built a mysterious machine in their workshop. It exploded. What it was designed to do has never been established. That it exploded is confirmed by multiple sources who knew them. Whatever they were building toward had been building for years. If you found this case interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. It's a simple way to support the work and help us uncover the next story. And now, let's return to today's case. On August 17th, 1966, Cruz and Viana left Campos dos Goitacazes. They told their families they were going to São Paulo to buy equipment. They did not go to São Paulo. They boarded a bus to Niterói in the opposite direction and arrived at 2:30 in the afternoon. The first thing they did was buy matching waterproof raincoats from a shop. Then they walked to a bar and bought a single bottle of water. The waitress at the bar remembered Miguel Viana specifically. She described him as very nervous. He kept checking his watch. They were on a schedule. Something was supposed to happen at a specific time, and they needed to be somewhere specific when it did. That is the last confirmed sighting of either man alive. From the bar, they walked directly to Vintém Hill. The climb takes approximately 45 minutes. Whatever was written in that note, be at the agreed place by 16:30. They were on their way to keep that appointment. 3 days later, the boy with the kite found them. The inventory of what was with them has been examined and debated for nearly 60 years. 2 bodies in formal suits, 2 matching raincoats, 2 lead masks with no holes, 2 watches removed and stored, 1 empty water bottle, 2 wet towels. No explanation for the wet towels has ever been satisfactorily offered. A small amount of cash. And the note. Every item is consistent with deliberate preparation. The raincoats suggest they expected some kind of exposure. The lead masks suggest they expected light or radiation intense enough to require shielding. The removed watches suggest they expected some form of electromagnetic interference. The wet towels suggest something no one has been able to name. The capsules mentioned in the note were not found. Either they took them and the containers were removed, or the containers decomposed, or the note refers to something that did not happen on this particular day. Their bodies showed no external trauma, no signs of violence, no signs of a struggle with another person or with the landscape. 2 men lay down in the grass and died, and left behind a note that explains everything about what they intended and nothing about what actually happened. The Brazilian police investigation into the lead masks case failed at its most critical moment, and that failure is now permanent. The organs of both men were removed at autopsy and stored for toxicological testing. They sat on a shelf at the Niterói coroner's office. The office lacked the proper chemical reagents to complete the tests. By the time anyone with the right equipment was involved, the organs had deteriorated beyond use. They were discarded. Whatever was in the capsules, if capsules were taken, cannot now be identified. Whatever physiological process killed these men left no surviving trace in any analyzable tissue. This single failure a matter of inadequate laboratory infrastructure and bureaucratic delay. Closed the only door that could have answered the central question. Everything else in the investigation is inference and witness testimony, none of it independently verifiable. The witnesses who came forward in the days after the bodies were discovered added several layers to the case that have never been resolved. A woman named Gracinda and her husband reported that they had seen strange lights above Vintém Hill on the evening of August 17th. The evening the men are believed to have died. They described a bright oval object, a light that hovered and then moved. After the case became public, other callers reported similar sightings from the same area on the same night. A loud explosion was reported by at least one witness. The police logged these statements formally. Whether the lights were connected to Cruz and Viana's deaths, were unrelated atmospheric phenomena, or were the retrospective amplifications that tend to cluster around mysterious deaths in communities with active supernatural frameworks. None of this can be determined. Several witnesses reported seeing the two men accompanied by a third person as they approached the hill. This third person was never identified. No one matching any description ever came forward. No trace of a third person was found at the scene. If he existed, he walked away. If he walked away, he knew something. He has never spoken. And then there is the earlier case. 4 years before Cruz and Viana died, in 1962, another man was found on another hill in the region, dead, wearing a similar lead mask. This case was never formally connected to the 1966 deaths. It was never fully investigated in its own right. The identity of the 1962 victim is not prominently documented in available records, but the implication is clear and has never been adequately addressed. Whatever Cruz and Viana were doing, someone had done it before. Someone died doing it before. And the practice continued. Here is the thing about the lead mask's case that separates it from almost every other unsolved death in this archive. Cruz and Viana were not irrational men. They were not experiencing a mental health crisis. They were not coerced. They walked to that hill by choice, following instructions they had received from a source they trusted in pursuit of something they had been working toward for years. To understand what happened on Vintém Hill, you have to take their beliefs seriously, not as true, but as the operating framework that produced every decision they made that day. In their framework, electromagnetic frequencies were not separate from spiritual reality. They were its mechanism. Radio waves, electrical signals, radiation. These were the channels through which higher intelligences communicated. A skilled electronics technician was uniquely positioned to receive and interpret those signals if the right conditions were met. The right conditions required preparation, mental preparation, focus, ritual, the cultivation of receptivity, physical preparation, the removal of interference sources like watches, the protection of sensitive tissues from expected energetic output, and chemical preparation, the capsules, whatever they contained, presumably intended to alter consciousness toward greater receptivity. The lead masks were not irrational, lead blocks, radiation. If you genuinely believe that contact with a non-human intelligence will produce a flash of energy intense enough to blind unprotected eyes, you make yourself a mask. You make it out of the best radiation blocking material available. You make sure it covers everything. The note was operational. 16:30. Arrive. 18:30. Take the capsules. After the effect, protect the metals, the watches, and any conductive materials that might be disrupted. Then wait. Wait for the signal that tells you it is safe to look. They were waiting for permission to remove the masks. The permission never came. Here is what the evidence establishes. 2 men died on Vintém Hill on or around August 17, 1966. They were there by choice. They followed a specific set of written instructions. They had prepared carefully: matching coats, handmade masks, a schedule, capsules, removed watches. The preparation was not improvised. It reflected familiarity with a procedure. The cause of death is unknown and permanently unknowable given the destruction of the physical evidence. The note implies a source. Someone gave them the instructions. That person or group has never been identified. The 1962 death on a nearby hill with a similar mask implies the practice predated Cruz and Viana and did not end with them. A third person may have been present and left. If so, he is the only living witness to what happened at the agreed place. 3 positions remain. First, Cruz and Viana ingested a toxic substance. The capsules contained something: a psychoactive compound, a poison, something miscalculated or misdosed that killed them. The belief system was the context. The chemistry was the cause. This is the most economical explanation and the one most consistent with the physical evidence. Second, they were part of an organized group, and the group either deliberately caused their deaths or was itself following instructions from someone who did. The third person, the 1962 precedent, the existence of organized spiritist networks with shared methods, all of this supports the possibility that Cruz and Viana were not the authors of their own fate, but participants in something larger and more dangerous than they understood. Third, something happened on that hill that has no available explanation. This is not a position this investigation endorses, but it is a position that the evidence neither confirms nor eliminates, because the evidence required to do either is gone. What I keep returning to is the simplest version of the tragedy. 2 men climbed a hill, believing something extraordinary was about to happen to them. They had prepared for it carefully. They had waited for it for years. They put on masks they had made with their own hands, and they lay down in the grass and they waited. And whatever came for them, a toxic dose, a deliberate act, something no one has named, they never saw it coming because they were blind. Vintém Hill is quiet now. Hikers go there on weekends for the view across the bay. The grass grows over the place where 2 men in lead masks lay down and did not get up. The masks, the raincoats, and the notebook are locked in Brazilian police archives. The case is technically open. In practice, with no surviving physical evidence and no living witnesses who have come forward, there is nowhere for an investigation to go. Their names were Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel José Viana. They were 32 and 34 years old. They left families behind. They believed something with enough conviction to die for it. Whether what they believed was true is a question this case cannot answer. What it can say is that they were not fools. They were not unstable. They were skilled technicians who applied their skills to a set of beliefs that were, within their community and their time, coherent and shared. They followed the instructions completely. They arrived at the agreed place. They ingested the capsules. They protected the metals. They put on the masks. They waited for the signal. It never came. Or it came, and it was not what they expected. Or it came exactly as they expected, and the dying was part of it. If you've heard of this case before, if you have any information about the spiritist networks operating in Brazil in the 1960s, about the 1962 death, about the identity of the third person reported by witnesses, leave it in the comments. I read all of them. Cases like this only move when people who know something decide to say it. And if this is the first time you've heard of Manuel and Miguel, if you've just spent 15 minutes with a case that the rest of the world mostly forgot, then you understand what this channel is for. The Crime Dossiers. One case every week. Forgotten cases, real evidence, honest answers when we have them, and honest admissions when we don't.